Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to Sports Time HQ. I'm your host, Fernando. Joining me today is my co-host, Gary, and a special guest star. You've seen him here before. It's Mr. Marcas Grant himself from NFL Network Fantasy. Marcus, I'll start with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Appreciate you guys having me back on the show. Sort of enjoying the last couple of weeks of air quotes summer vacation before things get going. We will be back into the thick of things before we know it.
Gary, how about you?
Yeah, I'm feeling great as well. I just randomly felt like doing some mock drafts on Sleeper a few days ago, and I just am feeling the need to have fantasy football back. Like it's just itching at me right now. I need it.
To really think that fantasy football redraft leagues are going to be in full swing in what, 2 or so weeks, give or take, August, and then pretty much it's all redraft leagues.
Yeah, pretty much. I always feel like the Scott Fish Bowl is the kickoff of redraft season.
I completely agree with you on that one. Did you join one, Marcus?
I am in the dude division because The Big Lebowski is one of my favorite movies. Am I? Let me look and see make sure I'm not on the clock. I don't think so. I made a pick this morning, so I may not be picking again probably till tomorrow at some point.
Those drafts can be long, that's for sure.
Yeah.
What's your team looking like? What's your team looking like right now?
I actually kind of like my team, which means it's going to go horribly wrong for me. But oh wait, hang on, I just had it and I just pulled it down. Let's see. I actually took 2 quarterbacks in the first 2 rounds, which is very different from what I normally do. So I went 2 quarterbacks and then a tight end. So C.J. Stroud, Kyler Murray, Kyle Pitts were my first 3 picks. Followed that up with 3 wide receivers: Chris Olave, Michael Pittman, Stephon Diggs. Didn't take a running back until we got to the 7th round. And then 3 of my next 4 picks were running backs. So we are in the 13th round. My last pick this morning was Jameson Williams. He is my wide receiver 5 right now.
You definitely went 0 running back.
I did. It wasn't really planned. Like I said, I didn't expect to take 2 quarterbacks off the top. It just sort of happened that way. It fell to me a little bit, and then I went wide receivers because I liked all the guys that were there. I didn't like the running backs that were there at the time. I liked the wide receivers, and so it just sort of worked out that I went a bunch of wide receivers in a row, and then I'm like, all right, I should probably get a running back. I like the guys in the middle rounds, so I'm happy. I got who do I have now? Where I just lost it. But I went David Montgomery, Jalen Warren, Aaron Jones. And then I took Austin Eckler in the 11th because I feel like the hate has gone too far on Austin.
It really has.
Agreed.
It really has.
So, yeah.
I love that team, honestly. I've been pairing up CJ Stroud and Kyler Murray in any league I can, even in Dynasty, because I love those 2 for this year.
Yeah, so maybe this actually works out for me. Last year I had my best year. I've never made the playoffs in the Scott Fish Bowl, but last year I had one of my best years ever. So fingers crossed everybody stays healthy, and we'll see.
We'll see. So let's get into some news and notes. Hopefully you didn't draft Davante Adams, because obviously we'll be talking about him later on. But I know Gary, he loves Davante Adams. But some news around the league for Davante Adams is rumors came out again that he is locked in with the Raiders. But if there was somewhere or someone to reunite with, it would be Aaron Rodgers. We talked about this a little last week with Gary, Keith, and Eric Moody. But Marcus, I want to ask you, do you see a world where he will get traded, or is this also a reason, or is this Davante Adams trying to push his way out of Las Vegas?
I guess there's a small possibility that he gets traded. I feel like, though, at this point in the process, if you are sort of strong-armed into trading a guy like Davante Adams, you are not going to get the full value for a guy like that, because everybody sort of has their wide receiver situation settled. And if you are, say, the Jets, for instance, the Raiders are they don't have a lot of leverage, so you can kind of get him for relatively cheap. I say relatively because he's still a guy that commands a big price. I think this is Davante Adams sort of saying, hey, look, I'd like to play with my friend and a guy I was comfortable with. I mean, remember, he came to Las Vegas because he was going to play with his friend and former college teammate in Derek Carr. That lasted for all of 1 year, and then Carr gets shipped out to New Orleans. So, I think this is Davante Adams sort of being, trying to express his frustration. He's not your typical diva wide receiver. He's not, Stephon Diggs, who's just going to let you know exactly how he feels. Davante tends to be a little more diplomatic about his feelings.
So this is the question, and Gary, you can chip in on this one too. Say we are like week 7, week 8, Raiders 3-5, 4-4, around that record. Are they trading Davante Adams?
I mean, I think that they should. I think that it's fairly obvious that it's not the place that he wants to play anymore. As Marcus had mentioned, he wanted to play with Derek Carr, and he did good that year. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, led the league in touchdowns that year. So it's very clear that he's not happy anymore. And I think that if you have a guy that, while you might not get the best value for him or what he really is valued at, you could still get some good value. I think that you probably should pull the trigger. And I really hope that they do because, as you said, Freddie, I love Davante and want nothing more than him to get back to that Green Bay Davante.
Marcus, I'll ask you the same question. Do you think there's a world where he gets traded? Well, if they go 3-5, 4-4.
Possibly. I think it's just, at some point, if you are the Raiders, you do have to look at whether or not you're just going to blow this thing up and start over again, right? Because I don't think either the quarterbacks you have are guys you really believe in for the future. Zamir White seems like a nice running back, but he's not a guy that you're going to build around. So at some point, you don't want to be that team that is, either you're just squeaking into the playoffs and losing, or you just miss the playoffs, and then you sort of have a mid-round pick in the first round. Like, being in football purgatory is kind of the worst place to be, and they're sort of kind of hovering around that spot right now.
Okay. I completely agree with you guys. I think that I think they just need to move on from him. I think it just has not worked in Las Vegas for him. And I think they just need to move him to where Aaron Rodgers is. That's going to make him succeed the most. But yeah, that's kind of my line for Davante Adams. Moving on, quick little note is Broncos guard Quinn Miners, I want to say. 4-year, $80 million extension. I think this is a really good way of Broncos showing that they want Bo Nix to succeed, and they're trying to give him as much help as they can at the line.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're just trying to build this thing around Bo Nix as much as possible. I think it also helps the running game, provided we figure out how the running game shakes out. How much is Javonte Williams? How much is Samaje Perine? Is Jaleel McLaughlin going to step up? There's just so many questions in Denver right now, but at least, they're building up the offensive line, which is a pretty good place to start.
Yep, completely agree. Minor's pretty good. I believe, is he coming off his rookie deal? I don't know, but I know he's pretty young, I believe. So
yeah, very young, talented offensive line. I think he is coming off his rookie deal, if I do believe.
Yeah.
Marcus, you mentioned McLaughlin and Javonte. Do you like McLaughlin? Are you a McLaughlin guy? Are you McLovin him?
I don't know if I'm McLovin it. He's a nice late round pick, right? I am definitely not. I know there are a lot of people out there who are super high on Jaleel McLaughlin. I think he has some potential. I'm not ready to totally throw Samaje Perine to the curb just yet. I just think there's so much that can happen. I think the worst case scenario is that all three of those guys rotate through, and then everybody is unhappy.
And fantasy managers as well.
Yes,
because
that's what I meant. When I said everybody, that's what I meant. I'm sure the players. Okay. I'm sure the players are going to be unhappy as well. But for our selfish purposes, we're more worried about what.
Very much, very true, very true. Last set of notes. One of the biggest notes this week is Brandon Ayuk has officially requested a trade. We kind of already knew this, though. We knew he wanted out unless he got that big deal. Where does he go? Washington, Pittsburgh. That's his top 2 places. Does he go somewhere else? I know my New England Patriots inquired about him. Hopefully, maybe he goes there. But Spot Track, I looked up what they were saying about it and what his deal would be. It'd be somewhere around the 4-year, $104 million extension mark, which is just over $26 million a year. That would rank him 8th highest paid wide receiver in the NFL, sandwiched right between Cooper Kupp and Devonta Smith. Gary, I know your thoughts on it, but Marcus, what are your thoughts on this guy?
So, Brandon Ayuk has requested a trade. My kid frequently requests cupcakes. That doesn't mean he always gets cupcakes. Like Brandon Ayuk has very little leverage in this situation. He is still under contract. He is at this point set to make the most money that he has ever made as a professional football player. I get that he's unhappy with the way negotiations have gone. This feels sort of like a negotiating tactic. I know that he's talked to Deebo Samuel about this, and Deebo was in a similar situation not that long ago, right? And Deebo did the same thing where he requested a trade, and everybody, I think we had this, I'm sure we had these same conversations about it. And then in the end, he and the 49ers came to an agreement, and Deebo stayed with the team. So, I think it's interesting and funny, and it's kind of, interesting to talk about him FaceTiming with his old college teammate, Jaden Daniels. Look, if I'm the Commanders, by the way, I'm a little bit heated that, he's on IG or whatever and posting screenshots of the Washington offense. Like, I don't know that I love that part of it.
Spygate?
At all. So, that seems a little bit weird. But I think, there's going to be a lot of shouting, a lot of talking. But I think when we get to week 1, Brandon Ayuk will still be a 49er.
Are you concerned that maybe he won't show up or he won't want to play?
Look, I think he may wait into training camp, right? And I know Niners rookies reported today, I believe. He may wait. He may, just take some time out. He's going to start getting fined. He's not going to be getting paid.
I don't think he cares on that one.
Not really. Right now, I'm not really thinking a whole lot about it. It's July 17th, right? I'm not really worried about it. If we're starting to get close to week 1 and he's still holding out and he's still making noises, then maybe I think about this. But I don't see a world where he foregoes a whole season, because from the Niners part, they've made no indication that they are interested in trading him, right? Mm-hmm. Every report, every insider is like, the Niners don't want to trade him. They said they're not going to trade him. So the Niners are standing pat. So at some point, I think they're just waiting for Ayuk to blink. And I just don't imagine that Brandon Ayuk is going to sit out a full season. So, it's easy and fun to wish cast him to certain places. But I think that's all it is just wish casting.
Brandon Ayuk being drafted as wide receiver 15, Ricky Pearsall being drafted as wide receiver 75. Like you said, if we move to towards week 1, and he's still not there, are we going to see Ricky Pearsall come really high up into the rankings?
I'm curious about how high up, because he was also put on the non-football injury list today. So, that's going to be something to keep an eye on, is when he's ready to go. You will definitely see him move up, but I still don't know that we see a huge drop. We'll see a drop in Ayuk if we get closer, right? But I just think his talent alone is going to keep him sort of around there, because, again, I don't know that anybody in our space believes that he's not going to play this year. So I know the people who drafted Pearsall early and got him way, way low, they're feeling pretty good about themselves. I'm not mad at it, but at this point, I'm not really seriously entertaining the idea that, Ricky Pearsall is going to be the wide receiver 2 in week 1.
All right. You guys got any more notes before we go into the busts?
No, I think I'm good.
All right. Well, let's bring in Keith, our other co-host.
What's going on, guys?
There he is.
So, obviously, let's get into the bust quarterbacks. And obviously, 4 of us here, we're going to name 4 different guys. I think it was a little tough for all of us to get our guys, maybe. I don't know. But, Gary, I'll start with you. Who is your bust guy for the quarterback position?
So my bust quarterback is Joe Burrow. And that's not necessarily me saying that I think he's going to be, a bad quarterback, of course. He's one of the best in the league. It's more so the terms that he's being drafted, I believe, quarterback 6'7", and I can't see a world where he does that well. He's coming off a season-ending surgery, complications with T. Higgins and the whole contract situation, and Tyler Boyd's gone now. They brought in Jermaine Burton from the draft. it's just a up in the air team, I think, right now, or just at least the offense. And I don't think he's going to start out on a great path. I think that's going to derail his value just a little bit. I think he finishes around that QB 12 range. Wouldn't necessarily say he's 6'7". So you could say what you want about him being a bust necessarily. I think it's more so that he just doesn't really get his value at all.
Yeah, I kind of go with that one. Like a lot of these, I'm going with ADP on mine. So yeah, I kind of get where you're coming from here. I can see him, get somewhere between 10 and 15, all right. But getting anywhere near kind of that top 5, I think is going to be a stretch. I think there's too many question marks around that offense and around the whole Bengals at the moment.
See, I think top 5 definitely is a stretch. I think he's in the top 10 because Jamar Chase is still there. I think long-term, the T. Higgins thing is going to be an issue. But for now, he's locked in. And I secretly love Jermaine Burton as a late-round pick because he fell in the draft because all these off-field issues, right? That there are things going on away from football that sort of made him a little bit problematic. But in terms of talent, this is a guy that, if the off-field issues weren't there, people were talking about as a day one pick. So, I mean, I think he's got 3 solid wide receivers. I think there's something there. Now, I think the thing that hurts him is not running as much as some of the other guys above him. I think that's kind of be a problem. But I think, a healthy Joe Burrow, which – fingers crossed. I know that hasn't been the case lately. A healthy Joe Burrow easily is a top 7 quarterback, I think, in fantasy.
Yeah, I can easily see that. I don't see him really pushing to that top 5. I think we've seen new young quarterbacks really come into the NFL and really emerge as top fantasy wideout quarterbacks. But I can see him as like around 9, 10-ish of quarterback. So still top 10. I like him, but again, where he's going in ADP can sometimes be the biggest concern because, you got those people that really love Joe Burrow, don't want to get away from him, and then they'll just keep drafting him and overdrafting him every year. So, Keith, who's your guy?
Your guy is the guy you're not going to like.
Can I remove you? Where's the remove?
I like him too, but I just think we're picking him right as ceiling. It's CJ Stroud. I mean, he's going as the QB5. I mean, I think that's the top of his ceiling. I think it's only he could go higher. He could slip into that top 4 in ADP. I think as the months go on, I just don't see that with having the rushing upside. Like I look there, and Kyler is the QB10 there on Fantasy Pros ADP. Like I would much rather wait. I'm all about the rushing upside. I just don't see how Stroud can get in anywhere near that 5 maybe, but I don't see how he can break it. I love the guy, love the talent, love what's around him, but I really think you need to have that rushing upside to be hitting that kind of top 5, unless you're Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, I see it. I understand both sides of this coin, right? Because I think we saw what he did last year as a rookie and how amazing it was, and then they go and add Stephon Diggs. Makes a mess trying to pick a Texans wide receiver, but in theory it helps CJ Stroud. So I see that side of it, but I also see the side of the rushing upside, right? When you've got the guys with Allen, Hurts, Lamar Jackson, all above him, Anthony Richardson just after him. Those guys give you those rushing numbers. So I see both sides of it. I will say that I've drafted CJ Stroud mostly because I'm scared to draft the Texans wide receiver, and this is sort of the way to get all that production kind of baked into one player. So that has been my rationale for drafting Stroud.
Well, here's my question then. Josh Allen's being drafted as the first quarterback off the boards. He finished as QB1 last year. We can say that that's the highest ceiling that any quarterback can be. You could almost argue that Josh Allen could be a bust. Obviously, with the talent that he lost with Stephon Diggs. I'm not saying he is a bust, but I love CJ Stroud. So, Keith, I'm going to have to hate your bust.
Well, I knew that was going to happen. But going back to Allen, you know Allen's going to use his legs at the goal line and stuff like that.
He is.
I mean, you're not getting that from Stroud.
He's been the best. He's been Buffalo's best goal line back since the day he was drafted.
Definitely, yeah.
What running back really is in Buffalo these days? But I do love Stroud a lot. And like Marcus was saying, with all the wideouts, you're scared to draft any wideouts. So you go draft CJ Stroud, who has all the players to help him succeed. I think there's no brainer he's finishing top 5 this year. Wow. And I can very much see CJ Stroud being the quarterback 3 exactly where he's going. I have him statted finishing as the QB3 this season. So I love CJ Stroud. I am all in. I don't know if I'd question even drafting him first quarterback off the board. I'd be fine with doing that.
Now we're going into hot takes scenarios here.
That's spicy.
Who else?
Man.
Who else besides Josh Allen?
Well, I want to know who you're
Jalen
dropping
Hurts?
out of your top 4 that's a rushing quarterback. Because that's what you've had to drop someone who's a rushing quarterback outside your top 4 or 5.
Well, my top 4 is Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, CJ Stroud, and Kyler Murray. Those are my top 4. And then
Kyler is definitely spicy there.
Kyler's spicy in the top 4 too. I like
Marvin
Kyler.
Harrison,
Yeah,
Trey McBride.
I mean, I like Kyler, but top 4 is super spicy for me.
Yeah, I'd like to know where Lamar is. I'd like to know where Lamar is, but
That's because we've talked about it, Gary. I have Lamar Jackson finishing as the QB 11 this season.
What? That can't be possible with the Russian upside. Like
I statted it. I was shocked myself. I was shocked myself when I statted this.
Does he spend like 3 weeks in an alternate dimension?
Maybe.
Or on the bench.
I tell you what, I have Lamar Jackson having 644 rushing yards, 4 rushing touchdowns, just shy of 4,000 passing touchdowns, just shy of 4,000 passing yards, 30 passing touchdowns, and 10 interceptions. And he's still my QB 11.
Wow.
He has a good season. It just, in fantasy-wise, he just finishes a QB 11.
I like to be in the leagues here, and I'll take Lamar as a value in all the leagues.
Go for it. Go for it. I'll take Kyler Murray, CJ Stroud over him.
All right.
But that's my take on CJ Stroud. Gary, you can go and take your take on him.
yeah, I mean, I think Freddie and Keith, at least you guys know this, big Ohio State guy over here, but I actually am going to agree with Keith. I don't know if he's going to be 3 to 5 range. I think that you could debate 5, but I think that's his best. I actually started him QB 9, and I think that is maybe a spot low. I think that he could finish anywhere from 5 to 9, but I would probably lean towards the bottom half. So I will agree with Keith that he's maybe being just a tad bit overdrafted right now. And I wouldn't be surprised either if it even skyrockets more. So as much as it hurts me to say, Keith, I do agree with you that he's being a little bit overdrafted right now.
Well, thank you. I mean, like, he finished as a QB 13 last year, and we're talking like he's gained Stephon Diggs. So you're saying that Stephon Diggs is going to bridge that gap massively? I'm not sure. Going from 5 to 13, I think he'll get in the top 10, but like 5, to 13 is a big gap, I think.
I don't know. I think Diggs, Nico, Tank, Schultz, Joe Mixon, who's a passing down back.
Great offense.
I'm telling you, they're a sneaky Super Bowl team.
They are. I don't disagree.
I don't disagree with that. I mean, they definitely are a contender. They are a contender.
Yeah, I go with that.
Marcus, who is your bust quarterback? Who are you not loving?
I'm concerned about Jordan Love a little bit. I feel like it just seems like there's a chance for him to step back. And this isn't like a fall off a cliff sort of regression, but you look at the guys that are ranked, highly, like the top level guys. Usually one of two things exist. Either you are a running quarterback or you sort of have an alpha wide receiver to help you along. Jordan Love doesn't really have either of those. I mean, he's a decent runner. What do you have, like 300 some odd yards last year? 247, actually, so less than 300 yards. 247 on the ground. You look at that wide receiver room, there are 4 or 5 guys that they've got there, and you don't know who it's going to be on any given week. But none of them, they have a lot of good players, but no one who just stands out. There's no wide receiver in that room that's going to have defensive coordinators up at night trying to figure out how do we slow this guy down. In order for him to sort of match what he did last year, he has to be uber efficient, right? He's got to give you one of those crazy Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers type efficiency years. And I just don't know if that happens. And let's just say last year he had 4,100 yards. If he steps back and he gives you 3,800 yards and say 28 touchdowns, that's a big chunk out of what his scoring is going to be versus this past season. And again, that's still a pretty good year. I think the Packers can be competitive and win with that. But I think that's going to be, you're going to look and, he's going to give you over the course of the season 30 to 40 fewer fantasy points. And I think that's going to sort of add up. So I think this idea that somehow everybody just necessarily progresses forward, I think we have to sort of rethink that a little bit. And again, with no real clue of how the who's at the top of the trust tree when it comes to the passing game there in Green Bay. I guess it's Jaden Reed, but some weeks it could be Christian Watson, it could be Romeo Doubs, maybe it's Dontavian Wicks. Last year Bo Melton kind of showed up out of nowhere at the end of the season. I think there's a little bit too little clarity, too much lack of clarity there in that offense. And so I feel like, we could see Jordan Love fall back outside the top 10, top 12, and we'll be asking ourselves, like, what happened to Jordan Love? Is he a bust? And it's like, well, maybe not. Maybe, maybe he just played above his head a little bit last year.
I think I could very much see your point, and the clarity with the wide receivers. I mean, it's a complete disaster because, one, you don't know who's going to stay healthy. All these guys love to get injured. So they're constantly getting injured.
I also love to get injured. It's like, yep, I'm going to get hurt today.
Twist an ankle, stuff like that. But Christian Watson, he had an injury. Jaden Reed had an injury. Romeo Doubs, they all had injuries. But the thing that really impressed me the most with Jordan Love is he was still fantasy relevant, even if one of those guys missed time or even two guys missed time. Because he was always efficient either on the ground, like you said, with the 247, or even just passing it to someone, finding those guys, Bo Melton coming in late, Luke Musgrave coming in. I mean, I don't see a possibility in a bust potential for Jordan Love, but I think he can fall a little bit farther down than his ADP, but I think he's still a top 10 quarterback for fantasy purposes.
All right. I mean, that's fair. I feel like with quarterback, it was hard to find one, and I think a lot of them, like you guys say, they're sort of based on ADP, right? It's not that these are bad players. It's just, I know Ian Hartis always says, love the player, hate the ADP, and I feel like that's kind of what this one is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Anyone else have any?
I mean, I agree in terms of I don't see him going for 4,100 yards and 32 touchdowns. I think that's going to regress, and like Marcus said, I think that's where your hit's going to come, in terms of fantasy points. I still think he ends up around the 10th spot. I think he's ADP 8-9 now. I think he'll end around 10 or 11, and he'll still have a good year. But I think Marcus is right. He's going to have another really good, back-to-back year. And maybe he does, and we see that, and we're all kind of like, okay, maybe we kind of judged it. But I'd rather see him have consecutive great years. But I think he will regress, this year.
Okay. I feel like I could see both sides of the coin on this take as well. I'm a Jordan Love believer, so I'm going to stick to that, I guess. But I completely agree with the clouding of the wide receiver position in Green Bay. It is very up in the air. You don't really know who's going to be the guy that takes the reins each week, or if any will. But I really do love what I see in Jordan Love. I know I sound like a broken record in saying it, but he reminds me of an off-brand Rodgers. He just does. I don't like to say it, but he really does. The way he throws off his back foot, very effortless, looks so smooth. I really do what I like. I really like what I see in him, and I don't see a world where he has a bad season or too crazy of a worse season than last year to make me not draft him where he's going right now. So I'm going to disagree, but I 100% see where you're going.
All right.
The great value of Aaron Rodgers. Here's my question. Say he finishes around 8, like the 8th quarterback in fantasy, and they draft, I don't know, whatever they draft first round wide receiver. Are you moving him up in your rankings next year? Are you thinking about maybe the consistency's there? Now he's got a wide receiver 1, and now he can be a top 5 quarterback.
Oh yeah, no. If he does this again, then absolutely. I'll eat this and say, hey man, he outperformed my expectation, and then at that point, I've seen it 2 years in a row. Absolutely, I'll move him up.
Okay. Well, let's go into my guy, the last one for the quarterbacks, and that's Anthony Richardson. I think there's a lot of hype within Anthony Richardson. A lot of hype last year with him, a lot of hype again this year. He faced that injury last season, but he's being drafted right now as the QB6 with really no sample size in the NFL. I think as a rookie or a second year now, I just don't see him should be a top 10 quarterback being drafted, especially with a lot of question marks. I statted him as a QB 13. I think that's a fair projection, in my opinion, of Anthony Richardson. Last season, with the 4 games that he played, he rushed a lot. And that is also because he was without Jonathan Taylor. There was no Jonathan Taylor with him in that offense when he played. So obviously you can stat out what you want with that big 2-game sample size that he had, but it really just, you're not able to. And if you look at the people around him in the ADP, you can draft someone like Joe Mixon, Zay Flowers, George Pickens, T. Higgins that are going around him right now, or get Marcas Grant's bust in Jordan Love, who is going 12 picks after Richardson, which personally, in my opinion, I'd rather draft Jordan Love 12 picks later, get maybe a Joe Mixon, Zay Flowers type of guy, and then draft Jordan Love 12 picks later in the next round. So I'm surprised that Anthony Richardson is being drafted so high up, and I think that's making his value just way too much of a bust. That's his ceiling, and I think that's a stretch being his ceiling.
We love rushing quarterbacks, man, and like that's what he did, and he did this last year
without Jonathan Taylor.
Without Jonathan Taylor, right? So now you add Jonathan Taylor. We'll see if he progresses as a passer, because that's kind of the big question mark about him right now, but. We love Justin Fields, man. And Justin Fields, we still don't know if he's actually a good quarterback in real life, but we know he's a great fantasy quarterback because he runs with the football and he was a good enough passer. I know people out there who are predicting him to be the QB1. That's a little too rich for me, but we want that rushing upside, and we know he's going to, especially down near the goal line. Like Lamar Jackson runs, they don't use him near the goal line. But the fact that you can get rushing touchdowns out of Anthony Richardson, that alone feels like the cheat code. So I feel like he's in a good spot. I'm actually okay with his ADP.
Really?
Yeah, I don't like it, don't hate it. To be honest with you, I'm not an Anthony Richardson guy whatsoever, but fantasy-wise, I can respect it. I guess I'm going to say that I understand the ADP. Wouldn't necessarily say that I would pull the trigger with him being quarterback 6 if he was still there a round or 2 later, for sure. The sample size does kind of make it cloudy for me. I would be a little bit hesitant, but Marcus, you're right. We love the rushing upside in quarterbacks, and he's loaded with it. So I guess I would say I'm a fantasy believer in Anthony Richardson.
Yeah. Mine's just the injury concern. That's all. Like, I'm a big guy on rushing quarterbacks. Everybody knows at this stage. So I have no problem where he's going. I would just be cautious on coming back from that injury. And then the way he kind of ran last year, he was always going to get hurt at some stage. He was just throwing his body forward. He needs to learn not to be doing it. There's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, and hopefully he learns the right way. But I don't mind the ADP as it is.
I just don't see a world where Anthony Richardson can be a QB6. I mean, you see Justin Fields, like Marcus, you were saying. Justin Fields, we love rushing quarterbacks, and I agree with that statement. But you look at Justin Fields' 3 seasons, QB 31, which obviously was his rookie season, QB 7, all right, second season, and then QB 18. I don't know. I think it's too high for me. But anyways, those are our quarterback busts: Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, Joe Burrow, and of course Jordan Love. Let's get into the running backs. Keith, we'll start with you. Who's your running back bust?
Saquon Barkley. I've been burned far too many times with this guy. Currently ADP 6. I guess I've gone to a new team, and I get that. But you also got Hurts that's going to rob the touches around the goal line, which will obviously affect him. He's just too big of a risk for me going at running back, 6 in ADP. I'm just totally out. If he ends up having a great season, I'll just take it on the chin and that's it. But it's just a guy that I'm totally out on.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I've been a little nervous about Saquon just because I don't The good news is that he's in a better offense than he's ever been in his career. The bad news is they don't have to lean on him the way the Giants did. Like, the Giants had to give him the ball like 300 times a year because who else were they going to give the ball to? Like, the Eagles don't have to do that, right? I mean, Hurts can run. They can throw it to A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith. They have so many different things they can do with the ball that they don't need Saquon to be that guy. So I think he'll be fine. Like, I think he'll be kind of a fringe RB1, but I'm kind of with you. At his ADP, I haven't really drafted him a whole lot.
Yeah, I'll add on to that one. I mean, being Jalen Hurts' kind of guy that rushes all the time, how are you going to be able to have Saquon Barkley be that RB1 when he's going to be rushing a lot more as well?
Slightly agree. I think that not necessarily RPO play, but the rushing capability of both of those players is going to be so disruptive to opponents' defenses. It's a similar way that I view Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry's connection next year. I think it is going to be outlandish, and I think it's going to be the same way with Saquon. But I agree with you, Keith, in the fact that Jalen Hurts is going to take away touchdown touches or goal line touches. So that's 100% going to decrease his value by a lot. So I would slightly agree in the sense that his ADP is pretty high. RB6, I wouldn't touch him there. So, yeah, I agree.
Okay. Marcus, who is your bust for the running back position?
It's Aaron Jones, and that hurts my heart because for so many years in Green Bay, like, we wanted more Aaron Jones, and the Packers just wouldn't give it to us because at first it was Jamal Williams taking those opportunities. Then they kept trying to force feed us A.J. Dillon. When Aaron Jones was healthy last year, he was really, really good. Now he goes to Minnesota, and I just think everybody in Minnesota takes a hit because of the quarterback situation. And I say this as a through and through USC Trojan. Like, I want to see Sam Darnold succeed, but I also have seen this movie. Like, I know how it goes. I think the good news for Aaron Jones is that there's nobody there that I'm really concerned is going to take a ton of opportunity from him. But the bad news is that I think this team may be playing from behind a little bit more, and so that means they're going to have to throw the football a little bit more, which is going to sort of take Aaron Jones out of opportunities. So I see why he's sort of just kind of hanging around. I drafted him in Scott Fishbowl mostly because he just kept falling to a point that it's like, okay, well, he's here now, I'm going to take him. But I think at where his current ADP is, I don't like it. I just don't. I want him to do well. I just don't think the situation's good for him.
So are you drafting him as like an RB3 flex play now?
Yep, that's exactly where he's my third running back on this Scott Fishbowl team. Yep.
And I think an RB3 flex play at this point in his career for Aaron Jones, I think I agree, and I see. And Sam Darnold, I don't think will be the starting quarterback. I think overall will be J.J. McCarthy because he's just that good.
He's so pounding this wagon. He is.
I'm big JJ. Listen.
Listen to Marcus.
I wanted the Patriots to draft JJ McCarthy.
Did you?
Not at 3. I wanted us to trade down and get JJ McCarthy.
I feel like the biggest talking point on behalf of JJ McCarthy is everybody's like, he's a winner. He just wins at every level. And I'm like, okay, but is he good? Like,
he's good.
Everybody in the NFL has been a winner on some level. At least most of these guys have. Like, I feel like I need if I'm going to make you my franchise quarterback, I need you to bring more to the table than, hey man, he's just a winner. Like, I need something else, and nobody can offer me that.
Mm-hmm. Understandable. And I mean, I think everyone's a winner if you make it to the NFL. Let's be real. Making a lot of money, enjoying life, even if you start for only a season. But I do like JJ McCarthy, but I do think Aaron Jones is. I just see him as more of an RB3 flex, like you do, Marcus. I think the RB19, I just don't know if I'd pull the trigger at that rate because you have someone like DeAndre Swift, who is RB21, or David Montgomery, who's RB22. I'm perfectly fine drafting David Montgomery at that rate.
Oh, no, I love David Montgomery. DeAndre Swift, I've stayed away from because I have no idea what his role is going to be. None.
A lot of question marks.
Yeah. None at all.
Yeah, it also hurts me to say with Aaron Jones, I love him so much. I've always loved that Packers trio of Rodgers, Devontae, and Aaron Jones. We did always want more from him, and Packers just didn't give him to us. And also, he was battered and bruised for a few years, so that's not necessarily the Packers' fault. But I would agree with you that the price tag for Aaron Jones RB19 is a little on the upside. RB3 flex seems perfectly fine for me. I think I'm not gonna force him into my RB2 spot whatsoever. But I do want to throw out the fact that he played so good against Minnesota. So maybe there's just that, there's just that thing that
if we can't beat him, sign him, like that sort of thing.
Right. Maybe, at least every home game when he goes into Minnesota, he just goes for 200 yards. No, but yeah, I love Aaron Jones. Hurts me to say, but yeah, he's honestly probably done.
I'm out on any Vikings player unless they drop in drafts. That's how I'm looking at it now. Yeah, like where you got Jones, I'm sure it was fine, but that would need to keep happening in drafts that I'm in if I want to go from same with any other kind of Viking. There's no one I want with. And again, it's a QB based decision.
Yeah.
I disagree. But anyways, I will go to my guy, and that is Mr. Jonathan Taylor, who I so much love, so much. I think he's a great running back, but his ADP is way too high. You're telling me a guy that's only played 10 games last season, 21 games in the last 2 seasons, is being drafted as the 4th running back off the boards? That's absurd. He should not be being drafted 4 running backs in. That's just too much. I mean,
why do you hate the Colts?
Why do you hate Green Bay?
I don't hate Green Bay, but
Jordan Love, Aaron Jones.
No, but Aaron Jones is he's a Viking now. He's not a Packer anymore. Like a Packer, you straight up hate the Colts apparently.
No,
what did the city of Indianapolis do to you? I mean,
city of Indianapolis didn't do anything.
Steak and Shake is really good.
No, I mean, I do like Jordan. Sorry, Taylor, Jonathan Taylor. It's Richardson, who maybe I don't like too much, but never been a believer. But Jonathan Taylor, I was a big believer in, but he's just going too high. So then I'll ask you guys this, since you guys think I hate the shake and bake of Indianapolis. ETN, Kyren Williams, and Jahmyr Gibbs. Are you drafting any of those 3 over Jonathan Taylor this year?
Gibbs.
Gibbs.
So Gibbs is being drafted. Gibbs, Kyren, and all those 3 guys are being drafted after Jonathan Taylor. I'm not
sure about
drafting him.
Kyren. I'm not sure, but Gibbs for sure. Gibbs is the only one I know for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
That's just me. That's just a personal thing. So.
Who was your other one? Kyren, Gibbs, and
Kyren, Gibbs, and ETN.
ETN.
Not ETN.
I don't know. No.
Not ETN.
What about Derrick Henry?
I'd rather take Derrick Henry.
I'd probably take Henry.
Yeah, I would take Henry.
Yeah.
I'd take the King or Taylor, but Taylor's being drafted RB4. That's too much. Too much.
Yeah. I'll go quick. I agree. I agree with that. His ADP is too high right now.
I think Jonathan Taylor is a beast, though.
He is. He is a beast. Can he stay healthy?
Mine is just I'd rather a lot of players underneath where he's Henry's at 10. I'd rather Henry. That's that kind of thing. Gibbs is going 1 after him. I'd rather that. So that's where I kind of stand. But Jonathan Taylor's still a great player.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said so far. So you're not going to get anything else from me.
Yeah, I don't know. Taylor needs to. They need to lower his ADP. I pay 2 firsts and a second for him in Dynasty 2 years ago? Yes. Do I regret it? Maybe not, because he won me a championship 1 year.
So you should love it that he's going to 4 then.
I do love it, but the problem is I don't love how high he's going. I love the player. He's a great running back, like Marcus said. When he's on the field, he's good. But it's just you can't take him at the 4th running back. I'm not taking him as a high end RB1. Nope, not happening. Keith, we'll go to your guy, or Gary, we'll go to your guy.
Yeah, I don't know how people are going to feel about this, but my running back is Devon Achane, and a few reasons why. He's currently being drafted as an RB8. I don't see it. I don't. I feel like he's got, injuries going on every other week, and the big part for me is that he's not the goal line guy. We saw it last year. Mostert had 40 touchdowns, and I think that whether you think Mostert is the better back or not, I think that's going to continue. He's slightly the bigger guy, so I don't think that Devon Achane is going to get the touchdown numbers to put him up there. I statted him honestly very disrespectfully. I should probably change it. I have him RB 25, so I think that needs some work. But I definitely would not say that he's going to be RB 8. I would probably sit RB 15 range. I really don't see it. I also didn't like how he finished the season in his last 5 weeks. He only had one game over 15 points. That concerns me just a little bit. So, yeah, what do you guys think?
No, I think this is like one of the easiest fades all offseason to me, just because one, Raheem Mostert, they re-signed him, so obviously they're still committed to him. They still want him to be involved. Devon Achane averaged 7.8 yards per carry. That is an absurd number. That is an absurd number. And so either I don't see him getting a significant increase in touches this year. So then he somehow still has to average nearly 8 yards per carry. That's a ridiculous standard to try and live up to. I would rather wait and get Raheem Mostert several rounds later, because I think you get similar production at a much, much better ADP. I'll say this. I feel like Achane's ADP has come down a little bit, but it's still way too high for me. No, he's been one of the easiest fades for me in best ball season.
I could see it. I could see the fade for sure. I actually, coming out in his rookie season, I was not a Devon Achane fan. I actually was totally against him. Even when he did good, I was still against him. But I think I'm kind of going into loving him. Why? I don't know. I think maybe it's the yards per carry that's really messing me up. But I'm starting to like him. And I think he'll still be able to produce. They did draft Jalen Wright, which I do actually really like. But the question is, I don't think he's going to be too much of a factor. Not this year anyways. But I do like Devon Achane. I cited him, I think, a little too high than what I wanted. So I'll have to drop him a little bit. But I think he can still be a top 10 running back.
He's a major fade for me too. I mean, the lack of respect shown to Mostert, I think, in fantasy is crazy. I mean, he finished as the RB2 last year. I get it. He's older and he's got injury issues. But still, I mean, having Achane's ADP as the RB8 is crazy, man. I'm on Marcus and Gary as well. Rather just sit tight and wait and, let Mostert fall to me than have to, go all the way up there for Achane. So, yeah, I'm definitely out of his current ADP.
Yeah, I have Devon Achane with the 7.4 yards per carry. I was having him around RB5. But if you really go to realistic numbers, I think 5.4 yards per carry could be reasonable for him.
Do you have him at 7.5 yards a carry? Is that what you have him at?
That's what I statted him originally.
That's crazy number.
He's not going to get that, though. He's not. There's no way that Devon Achane can average that in another season. But if you stat him realistically, around 5.4 yards per carry, which I think is still a little bit high, he still ends up being a top 15 running back, which I think is pretty fair for him. But I don't know. I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens with Devon Achane. But obviously, Jonathan Taylor, Saquon Barkley, Devon Achane, and Aaron Jones are 4 bust running backs. Let's get into the wide receivers. And Marcus, we'll start with you. Who's your bust receiver?
For me, it's Rashee Rice. And it honestly has nothing to do with any potential suspensions or anything like that. I mean, I guess that's in there, I guess, if you want. But I looked at what he did last year. The story about the Chiefs was, where are their wide receivers? Who's going to step up at the position? And he sort of took the reins, but so much of what he did, yards after catch were a big part of it, and so much of it was stuff that was kind of schemed up. It was screens. It was just little, sort of short throws that he turned into big plays. They want to be more vertical. They told us they want to be more vertical by the fact that they went out and got Marquise Brown and they drafted Xavier Worthy. They've got 2 guys now, and those 2 that can go out and win individual matchups. They can get open on their own without having to have it schemed up for them. Patrick Mahomes has said, we want to be more vertical. We want to attack down the field. So, and then throw in the fact that obviously Travis Kelce is still there, and yeah, maybe he's, starting to decline a little bit, but he's still one of the top pass catchers across the league, and he's still going to command a ton of targets. I just worry that Rashee Rice is not going to be able to duplicate what he did last year, because the Chiefs will be able to do a lot more offensively with their opportunities, with their weapons, and I think Rice is going to take a big hit. So he's a guy that I have really faded this offseason.
Yeah, I could fade away from Rashee Rice. I mean, Gary and I talked about it a few weeks ago, how as much as I don't like Kansas City, their offense got better than what they were last year, and they were Super Bowl champions for the last 2 years. So I completely can see Rashee Rice faded away from where he is.
Yep, completely agree. Yeah, you're right, Freddie. We talked about that wide receiver trio or core as a whole a couple weeks ago, and it got so much better adding Hollywood Brown and obviously drafting Xavier Worthy. I don't know. And of course, they have Kelce as well. So I don't know if the numbers that he had last year and projections for what people are going to think he's going to get next year will be there. So I agree. Heavy fade for me in Rashee Rice.
Yep, same. He's not a guy that's ever on my list. Never. Haven't been hitting the draft button on him. Complete fade for me too. So yeah, I'm out.
Okay, we all agreed.
All right.
My
people together. That's great.
Yeah, it's great. My bust wide receiver is Michael Pittman. No, I'm just kidding.
I was like waiting. I'm like, here we go.
Yeah, you're just playing into Marcus's theory now.
No, I actually love Michael Pittman. He'll ball out again. But Davante Adams is my bust wide receiver. Davante Adams has finished as a top 10 wide receiver the last 3 seasons. He's great. But this year, I think he's going to really show that Father Time's finally starting to catch up. If you dive into like a deep picture, in 2022, as a star, still a star, he was 8th in yards per route ran versus 30th last season among wide receivers. And then he was 6th in yards after catch in 2022, then went all the way to 25th last season. Wide receivers this season, the Raiders faced the 9th toughest schedule for them. And in his last 2 seasons with Las Vegas, he has a 57.2 catch percentage. That's not that great. He's only caught 203 receptions in the last 2 seasons, which actually is really good. Don't get me wrong. But he's had 355 targets in 2 seasons. Brock Bowers now coming in, which I do believe is going to be really good of a tight end in the NFL. I think that's going to take targets away from Adams. But the bigger question is the QB picture. I still think Minshew should be the guy there, not O'Connell. And Marcus, I'll hear your take on if you like O'Connell and Minshew personally. But I think when you have an opportunity to draft Chris Olave, Marvin Harrison, I think I'm leaning towards them now with Davante Adams. I haven't drafted Davante Adams last 2 seasons. Did it bite me? Yes. But I think I'm still going to fade him this season again.
Yeah, I get it. I think just we saw the start of a decline a little bit last year. 175 targets is a lot, and I don't know that he necessarily gets that many again this year. For me, I don't know if it makes a huge difference whether it's O'Connell or Gardner Minshew. I think they're kind of pointing Spider-Man gif. They're sort of like the same guy, basically, for me. So I don't think that makes a big difference. So, yeah, I totally get the fade on Davante Adams. Hey, real quick, because I got to get out of here in just a little bit. But can I give you my my tight end to?
Yeah, go for it.
Before I go, I think it's kind of spicy. I think it's Sam Laporta. I just think it's Sam Laporta where he is, right? The fact that he's coming off the board as the first tight end in an offense that still has Amon-Ra St. Brown, that has Jahmyr Gibbs. They've been talking up Jameson Williams a lot. There's just a lot of places to go with the football. Meanwhile, I can wait, and I can get a Mark Andrews, even a Trey McBride. There are a lot of guys I can get several rounds later that I think give me similar production. I'm not going to spend in early, like a 2nd or 3rd round pick on a Sam Laporta. I'd rather take a wide receiver or a running back in that spot and come back and get my tight end just a little bit later. So that's my thought. I mean, I think Sam Laporta is a really good player. It's not a hate the player. It's a hate the ADP. That's it.
I like Sam Laporta. so I can't complain with him. I'll draft him as the first tight end off the board. I'm fine with that.
Awesome. Yeah, fellas, I gotta go, but I appreciate you having me on. Best of luck this season. I look forward to catching up on this thing and hearing your takes. I see the list. I see the names on the list. I just want to hear what you guys have to say. But
all right,
yeah,
cool.
All right.
Thank
Awesome.
you, Marcus, for coming on.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right, going back into the wide receivers. Man, we love Marcus. Marcus is a great guy.
He's a good dude.
Yeah, we've had him. Keith, how many years have we had him now? 3 years, three
I
times.
think so, yeah. It's been on definitely the last 2, if not 3 years. Yeah.
Wow, we're getting old.
You're getting old, okay, buddy.
Oh man, 22 feels like 52 now. Going into wide receivers, though, continuing on with the wide receivers, I'll hear your take on Davante Adams. Gary, I don't even know if I want to hear your take. You're loving Davante Adams.
I promise you don't.
Let's hear it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Hate this take, Fernando. Davante's a top wide receiver in the game. He's going to get his. I think last season he showed that he's quarterback proof. He gets a bunch of targets, and I think that while that number might not be the exact same from last season, I think that he remains at the top of the league in that category. You mentioned Brock Bowers coming in, who I also agree. I think that he will be at least a good NFL tight end. I think it's going to help him a lot because a lot of what Bowers likes to do is go through the middle of the field, and that's a lot of what Davante Adams also likes to do. Runs a lot of slants, runs a lot of ins and outs. So what I think is that's going to free up anything else on the outside of the field for Davante. And you already know that if you get him one-on-one, that's easy all day. So I think that Davante is going to have big explosive plays this season. And I think that him being back in the top 10 wide receivers is a guarantee.
Disagree.
Nice. I mean, Davante Adams is my favorite wide receiver out of a lot of them. Throw Jamar, throw Jefferson, doesn't matter. Davante's my favorite. He finished as wide receiver 13 last year. I get the whole thing with the quarterback situation, but we've seen him with bad quarterbacks last year, and he still finished as the wide receiver 13 half PPR. I mean, he's going as the wide receiver 10 now, so you're still in that range. So, like, he could easily, for me, finish, 8, 9, 10. Or he could finish, just outside it, but it's still possible. I don't think he missed a step. I still think he looks good for 31. So thought he looked good last year. The thing that I would be happy with is that we've seen him play with bad quarterbacks and still put up numbers for fantasy. So I wouldn't be scared of Davante Adams this year.
What I think that he has more upside than downside, and that's a big thing for me when drafting players. And Fernando, you can agree to disagree. But I mentioned before, I truly believe that he is quarterback proof. He played with Aaron Rodgers for so many years, but past 2 years we saw him with Derek Carr, who I personally don't like at all, and Aiden O'Connell, who I don't think anybody is jumping at the screen to draft him in fantasy. So, I mean, we've seen him play with the best. We've seen him play with the bottom of the worst. So I think that if you're getting Davante Adams in the wide receiver 10 slot, you were jumping for joy.
I was going to say, I think he's a wide receiver 2 now in fantasy.
I mean, if you're getting him as a wide receiver 2, I think you're laughing. You've probably got a top
exactly.
and you're adding Adams. So I think it depends what way you look at it, right? I mean, are you happy with getting wide receiver 2? If you're outing them, though, are you happy with wide receiver 2?
I think it would be a low-end wide receiver 2. I think I started him as like a wide receiver 22. Yeah.
No, I don't see that.
Yeah, you guys can take him in our leagues because I don't want him.
That is just crazy.
I can't wait for this Sports Time HQ, whatever draft.
Yeah, I think. Yeah,
redraft league. It should be fun. I'll get Lamar Jackson. I'll get Davante Adams. Teams will
go
be great.
for it. Go get Jonathan Taylor while you're at it too.
I mean, I don't know if you guys started watching Receiver, if you watched or whatever. I know it's edited and stuff, but it was very interesting to me. Like when Jimmy G was there, he just did not look his way. I mean, you have your best player out there, and he just didn't bother to look at him. I mean, that was crazy.
him. Yeah, I forgot to mention
That was absolutely crazy. And then you got guys that are probably like worse off coming in and then just looking his way. I mean, you just have to throw the ball somewhere over where Adams is, and he's nearly guaranteed to catch it.
Right.
I mean, Jimmy G kind of shot himself in the foot there.
Nah, it's not 57.7 catch percentage with 355 targets over 2 seasons. It's just not gonna. That can't happen again. It's
But
not
do you
going to happen again.
Okay, and that's where the quarterback play comes into play. That's the reason why it's like that, and he's still succeeding. So I don't understand why.
But they didn't add anything in those last 2 seasons. This year they have Brock Bowers now.
Understandable, but I mean they also lose Josh Jacobs, and Zamir White isn't
I wouldn't be surprised if Brock Bowers leads the team in receiving. Let's go into the next wide receiver. Gary, who's your wide receiver?
Yeah, I'm not sure how you guys are gonna feel about this one, but I have AJ Brown. And I've always actually been an AJ Brown believer and fan. I loved when he was in Tennessee. So it does hurt to kind of say this, but a big reason why is a guy that we talked about earlier, Saquon Barkley. I think that is going to take, so many plays away from him. I think that if you think that Philly right now is a rushing team, just wait, because I think by week 5, they're going to be a solidified, top 1 rushing team in the league. I'm not the biggest fan of Barkley, but I think that he is a great back and he is going to do so much there. At least in terms of getting the ball. A big thing with AJ Brown with me is he just didn't finish the season well. He didn't have a week over 15 points in the last 4 weeks of the season and didn't have a touchdown in the last 6 games. That's obviously eye-popping numbers for a guy that is currently being drafted as wide receiver 6 per Fantasy Pros. So I don't like it. Everybody remembers his dud 1.8 points versus Kansas City. He had the 1 catch for 8 yards. I haven't been a fan of AJ Brown the past 2 seasons in terms of fantasy, and I think it's going to remain that way for me. I don't see him being the wide receiver 6.
I mean, for his ADP, he finishes wide receiver 5 last year. He's wide receiver 6. My problem is with it, I wouldn't love the ADP, but when I look at the guys going behind him, I'm kind of going, I'd still rather AJ Brown. Like, I haven't come around to Marvin Harrison the way maybe some of you guys have, but I see Puka just behind him, and I see he's too high for me. Garrett Wilson, still not in on him. And then we get down to Devontae Adams, where I'm in, but like we got 4 in there that I don't like. So kind of where it is, I'm kind of going, it's fine. I get where you're coming from, Gary, but it's kind of the guys behind him, and then you hit Devontae Adams, where I'm kind of going, all right, I'll take him there, or I'd wait on Devontae Adams. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I'm not overly in, but I'm not crazy out either. That's kind of where it is.
Yeah, and Keith, I'll agree with you on that because I could see drafting him as a low-end wide receiver 1, where he's roughly going, but I think wide receiver 6 off the board, I think you're pushing it just a little bit, but I would fade him from where his ADP is, but not overly fade. Fade him maybe low-end wide receiver 1, but that's not a big fade really.
I think I'm looking at his stats per game right now, and I just did some calculations. I mean, I don't know if you guys recall, but he had 6 games in a row where he went for 100 plus or 125 plus, and that's pretty much where most of his stuff came from. From weeks 3 to 8 or 9, whatever it is, he totaled 831 yards, and like I said, I just did the calculation. That's 60% of his yardage. And that coming in the middle of the season, I mean, obviously you want it no matter what, but I want the biggest production, obviously, towards the end in the playoffs, and that's just not what happened. Again, AJ Brown, great wide receiver, but I just think he's very, very inconsistent. And this offense, in terms of fantasy, is very inconsistent. They just have a lot of mouths to feed, and they're very unpredictable. I really don't know what they're going to do every game, I feel like.
I guess we'll see. We'll see what happens. You can draft AJ Brown. I'll let you draft him. Keith, you're up next. Who is your wide receiver bust?
So for my Sam Darnold take, because this has got nothing to do with Justin Jefferson, but he is my bust. I mean, you're telling me with Sam Darnold, this guy is going to finish the wide receiver 4. I don't see it whatsoever.
He will, but not with Sam Darnold.
I was waiting for this. But McCarthy, okay, even if McCarthy comes in for half the season, I still don't see this guy being the wide receiver 4. I really don't. Like I said earlier when Mark was bringing up Aaron Jones, I'm like totally out on any of these Vikings players purely on the quarterback. Like I don't have anything really brilliant or stats or good to say. Like JJ is one of the best wide receivers, but I mean, they say you can't win your league in the draft, but you can definitely lose it. I definitely feel you could be losing it taking Jefferson, in the first round of your draft. I really do. I think it's just a bad play. I get they're going to scheme up things, for Darnold and quick passes to Jefferson and all that stuff. But Darnold's not even average for me. And yeah, okay, maybe we'll let JJ have a crack at it, but we don't know what we're getting out of JJ. That's the thing. So I'm just completely out. Somebody else, I'm happy for someone else to take Jefferson before me because I'll just take whatever's behind him as Amon-Ra, whatever, that's fine with me. Even if it goes as far as taking Devontae down the back end and doubling up or something like that, I'm perfectly fine. But JJ is just off the table for me.
I mean, where he's going as the wide receiver 3, I can see your point because I do love Justin Jefferson. But I cited him as like the wide receiver 7, which was a surprise because I love Justin Jefferson. But I still drafting him as a wide receiver 1. I'm still fine drafting him as a high-end wide receiver 1. I'd be willing to take the chance on that. Obviously, you said Sam Darnold, he sees a lot of ghosts. Maybe he's going to see the Justin Jefferson ghosts. Instead, it's Christian Gonzalez from New England that he'll see. I don't know. But then you got JJ McCarthy. You got JJ McCarthy, who you say we don't really know much because he's a rookie, which I get. But we all know he's going to be a stud. So Justin Jefferson, I can see your take. I can see your take why you're falling back on Keith. I really do. But a world with Justin Jefferson will make JJ McCarthy skyrocket. Will make Justin Jefferson skyrocket. We all go home happy.
This pod is going to become how many times you can get JJ McCarthy in from now till the start of the season or until he actually plays a game.
Is that our weekly talk now? Last year was a Nakua segment
this is how do we fit JJ McCarthy in every week.
Keith, I don't mind it, but I'll be 100% honest. I did set Justin Jefferson as a wide receiver 3 for next year.
Ooh, JJ going good.
The thing is, I just think he's good enough to get his own, and that's obvious. But is it enough to get, top 5 and on? I think it is. I think his touchdown numbers have always been good, and they're going to remain that way. You look at last year, Kirk Cousins got hurt, and even with that, he got 100 targets. He played 10 games. 100 targets in 10 games, 10 targets a game. You can't really beat it. I mean, if that number stays the same or remotely close, I think that you're going to get the production that you want out of him. Wide receiver 3, I started him there. Like I said, that's up in the air. But I think that he for sure has the possibility to be wide receiver 5 or 6.
Yep.
Okay. Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, Rashee Rice, our 4 bus wide receivers. Let's get quickly into the tight ends, dive a little bit. We can either say, do you guys want to take your takes on your 2 tight ends? Meaning like, say I say my tight end and then you guys bash our tight ends or love our tight end bus? Or do we just love hate like we did last week?
It's tight end, so I'm like, whatever for this. So
that's kind of what I'm seeing. Like, I think consensus wise, before we start talking about our tight ends, is they all suck. Besides the top 5, 6, 7. After that, it's kind of like a question mark. Where are they going to end up, really? But anyways, I'll take my take on Dalton Kincaid being my guy. And the reason why Dalton Kincaid is my bust, I'm not saying he's going to be bad. I just think his ADP is a little too high for my liking. I love Dalton Kincaid. I think he's a great tight end, but I think Keon Coleman and Curtis Samuel in the mix, it's going to hurt his ADP, or the ADP that he's supposed to finish with, tight end 5. Dawson Knox is still there. Kincaid, he only averaged 9.4 points per game last season, which if you really stat it, I don't think you can make top 5 with a 9.4 points per game. With Knox, he was only 7.4 points per game. Without him, he was 14.2, so he was a stud without Knox. And even with Knox coming back after his injury, he was only getting 7.4 points per game as well, again, with Knox. So, and Buffalo is ranked to have the toughest schedule for tight ends this season, and that's my take on why Dalton Kincaid is not going to be as good as we hope he will be this season for fantasy football.
I mean, the only reason why I don't like it is because I actually started him as tight end 5. So I'm going to disagree. I watched a lot of Buffalo games last year, and I wasn't surprised to see that Kincaid only had 2 touchdowns last season because I don't recall seeing him get a lot. What I do recall is seeing the red zone targets be there. Didn't necessarily come 100% of the time, obviously, but I think he's going to get that same love in the red zone, and I think that number is going to double and possibly triple. So I think that's going to be where the difference comes in terms of him being at that 5 spot to, the bottom 5 of that top 10. So I'm going to disagree. I wouldn't be surprised if he's, the lower end of top 10. I agree with you. He's a great player, and you saying this is not necessarily saying that he's a bad one. But I'm going to disagree. I have him as a tight end 5, and if that's where he's going, I'm happy drafting him there.
I'm in on Dalton Kincaid. He's not a bust for me. I think he's the next option after Keon Coleman there. He's going to get a lot of red zone work, a lot of targets. I'm all in. So yeah, I'm fine with the top 5 shout. So yeah, I don't see him as a bust for now. I'm afraid.
All right, Gary, who's your guy?
My guy is Trey McBride, and I think the very, very sole reason is his ADP. I mean, I'm looking at Fantasy Pros right now, and whether this is accurate across all websites or not, it says he's the tight end 3.
Yep.
And I think that is just blasphemous. Good player, great last season. I think that nobody really expected it. So I think that's why he's getting love. It's the fact that they think that he's going to do even better this year. I don't know if I can see it. I think he can replicate last season. I'm not really sure where he ended up, but I don't see him in a world being the tight end 3. I would much rather have Andrews, who's behind him, Kincaid, Ingram. I would lean towards McBride over Kittle, but I think it's debatable. I think obviously Njoku at tight end 10 is a steal, but that's just me. I'm not the biggest believer in Trey McBride being tight end 3, so that's genuinely the sole reason why I picked him.
I'm on that train, and all the guys you called out, I'm on board with you. And if Ayuk ends up leaving, I'm on board with Kittle. I'll be moving Kittle up the board because I think we've seen it last year. I think he averaged something like 8 or 9 targets when either Debo or Ayuk wasn't playing, so he gets a big plus for me. So it's the ADP for me as well. There's just too many guys I like behind them. Simple as that. Nothing against Trey McBride himself or the situation. Just there's too many guys. I'm a real late tight end guy. You'll never see me generally go for a top 5 dude unless for some reason they're slipping. But yeah, I'm on the same train as you, Gary.
Yeah, I really like Trey McBride, and I think he's going to do really good this season. But to finish as a tight end 3 and being drafted as a tight end 3, I just don't see that happening. I think that has just brought so much hype that has skyrocketed his ADP way too high. I statted him as a tight end 7, and I thought tight end 7 was pretty good of a stat. I think he can go as high as tight end 5, but I don't see anything higher than tight end 5.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah.
I statted him, honestly, pretty disrespectful. I have him at tight end 11. I could probably do a little bit better than that. But yeah, I don't see any instance where he's tight end 3, especially with the presence of Marv there now. I don't think.
Yeah. Keith, who's your last guy of the day?
It's going to be funny because Gary's not going to be happy, but I have nothing against David Njoku as the tight end 10 as it is. He finishes at tight end 5 last year, but I think most of that work was done with Flacco. It's kind
So
of a little
true.
bit, of a that take, a Jerry Jeudy now their take, and then a Watson take as well. Not really a Njoku take. And kind of when I went down through it as a guy that likes to take late quarterbacks, it was just guys like Goddard, Schultz, Freiermuth, Komet, even deep sleeper K. Dalton that I would just rather take ahead of him. And I just think there's so many question marks over Njoku, whether Watson's back to normal, how Judy affects this offense as well. So yeah, for that reason, I'm out. I mean, it's a tight end position. I'm kind of never a bust in these guys because if for some reason Njoku slips because I go late, I'll take him all day. But where he is now, there's just guys behind him. I'll just sit there and wait and take them like second last or last pick and be fine with it.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, after tight end 8, 9, it's kind of just wishy-washy. One player can do so good and be from tight end 20 to tight end 9. That's how crazy the tight end world is. But I did stat him as a tight end 6, and I think he will do good. I think he's actually going to be the safety blanket of Deshaun Watson. And I don't think Judy's going to be that great. We waited so many years for him to be great in fantasy. He just has never turned out to be that guy. So I see a world where Njoku can succeed, but unfortunately for Gary, I do see a way where Njoku can really fade as well.
Yeah, I mean, to be completely honest with you, I'm not upset with that take. I love David Njoku as a player. He's super athletic, and his yards after the catch are just outrageous. But I do agree with you, Keith, in the sense that most of that work was with Joe Flacco. He was the security blanket for Joe Flacco. That wasn't in question. Deshaun looked his way a little bit, but definitely not as much as, to get him to that tight end 5 spot. The connection wasn't there. I watched every game, and I didn't like what I saw just because I know how good of a player David Njoku is. With that being said, things could change, of course. I think the biggest thing, actually, for Deshaun Watson to return back to what we think he can be or what he was is that he needs to relax and find that one guy that he can always go to. I think that's going to be David Njoku. Whether it works out or not, I don't know, but I like the upside there. I also statted him as tight end 6. I'm okay with that placement. And if you're telling me that I'm getting him at tight end 10, I am very happy with that.
I think he could fall as far as 10 and 12 overall.
I think naturally in drafts, especially coming closer, he just will fall.
I think so too.
I just think the way the natural ADPs will go. That's what I think.
Yeah.
I think you'll get people really high on Brock Bowers and stuff like that. That'll move up, so that he'll move down one. And there's always going to be a few down the pack. So I just think naturally you'll fall, and he'll probably fall into my realm then. Do you know what I mean? It's early now.
Right.
Yeah, you love drafting those tight ends late.
Yeah, I just don't see, unless you're going out for a Laporta or a Kelsey early. To me, it's just you're just wasting a pick when you could be taking another top receiver. That's the way I look at it, because it's a crapshoot for half of these tight ends. Anyways, it's pot luck the way it turns out. So
yeah, honestly, after the first 4 or 5 tight ends, after that, just wait like Keith does. Wait until the end.
Yeah.
You'll probably drop them anyways.
That's it. Like I'm never a guy that usually sits on the same tight end. You know what I mean? I'm swapping and changing most weeks anyway. So
yeah, I don't know. Dalton Kincaid, Dave Njoku, Trey McBride, and Sam Laporta, our 4 bust tight ends. Gary, Keith, you got anything else? We got anything else?
I don't. I'm excited. I like I said, I had mentioned before Keith came on. Yesterday, I just randomly felt the urge to do some mock drafts on Sleeper, and I'm just getting so excited for the season. I really can't wait.
You're getting ramped up, Gary.
I love it. It's up there at Christmas for me. I just feel, I feel like a little kid opening gifts. I just love it. Week 1 comes around. I'm so much of a better person. It makes me happy. So I can't wait. I know everybody else can't wait. I know you guys can't wait. So
yeah, that's
it. It's only about 5-6 weeks left.
Give it another even week, and things are going to really heat up. You're going to see people
what I was saying.
drafting left, right, and center. everybody, like the casual fans are going to start getting back into it. So it's all going to start opening up the next week to 10 days. So yeah, can't wait.
Yeah, I literally once August 1st hits, everyone mock drafting, ADPs will finally go back to normal.
That's it. We'll have to get in on that as well.
Yeah, we'll have to get a whole month of mock drafts in August, of course. Gotta get that going.
Definitely.
But Keith, before we do go, Gary and Marcus and I talked about it backstage before the show.
Mhm.
Have you played college football yet?
No, I haven't even seen the game. I've seen some of the game stuff, but I haven't looked online or anything and seen it. Is it good?
Amazing.
Yeah.
Better than EA Madden.
About to say, I stopped buying Madden because it's the same thing every year.
Really?
Is it way better?
Way better.
I think it's way better.
I'll have to.
It's like I feel like the recruiting tactic of it, or like free agency, you could say, the recruiting aspect is like a little bit of MLB The Show type of way.
Okay, and I that's the one I really like out of the American sports is The Show.
Yeah,
that's the one.
Yeah. That I knew you'd understand if I referenced it that way.
Yeah. That's what I'm currently playing.
Yeah, can't go wrong with MLB The Show.
Yeah.
But
I seen that some guy was I can't remember from what college, but he's ranked like 14 overall, and people were going mad.
Wow.
His throwing power was 17. I don't know. It was something I saw quickly. I was like, that has to be a glitch or something.
I don't know. I've seen a couple glitches so far, but not for me personally, but on videos. I don't know. College football is a great game, though.
I'll have to check it out.
Wish we had a code to give out. Maybe we'd get more people.
You can go and get one.
I could. Starting a giveaway. Make sure to use code SportsTimeHQ, not on the college football and Xbox PlayStation, but on Underdog Fantasy. They'll match first deposit up to $100. And if you're looking for a trophy, ring, or belt or anything, the fantasy football season's coming up. It's the time to buy, and get ready for your leagues. And, if you want me to join your league, sure, I'll take your trophy. I'll take your ring away from your league because I'll win it all. But if you want Gary, he might get a toilet bowl for him. Might as well. But anyways, that's going to do it here for this week's show. A great show of bust players. Next week, we got ourselves injury experts. Jesse Morse coming back on the show. We've had him way before. Keith knows him. He remembers him. He had that big talk about Michael Thomas, about he was never going to be the same again. And look where we are now, a couple years later. Once again, I was joined by my two great co-hosts. Gary, go follow him all over social media at Gary.Dombeck. And Keith as well. Go follow him all over social media at SwamDonkey_90 and on Instagram, HuddleUp_NFL. I'm Fernando. I'm your host, Sports Time HQ. We'll see you all next Thursday.